Right, so hopefully everyone can hear us. Welcome to today's webinar. We're going to be discussing the biggest issues in a DBA's world right now. Before we get started, I'd like to run through a couple of housekeeping items just regarding things like all attendees are on mute during this webinar. So if you want to let us know any questions, please do put them in the little text box. And during the course of the presentation, we'll answer them. And we'll also leave plenty of time at the end to answer some questions as well. Secondly, this is being recorded, so we'll be sending out the link afterwards over the next few days with the slides and the recording as well. So, joining us today, we have Hamish Watson. So, Hamish is joining us from New Zealand. If you've ever been lucky enough to hear Hamish talk, he's a thrilling rollercoaster ride of informative entertainment. Also, in my opinion, one of the best authorities on implementing DevOps. We've also got Kendra Little, who is the newest member of the Redgate evangelism team. I'll assume that most people already know who you are, Kendra. One of my colleagues did recently ask a client if they knew who you were, and they reply, I quote, "Have you heard of Elton John?" So you're pretty famous, I guess. And we've also got William Durkin, not only the co-founder of Europe's finest consultancy, Data Masterminds, but also a regular speaker on the circuits and founder of the world-famous SQL Grilling event. If you like beer, barbecue, and SQL, I highly recommend you look that one up. So welcome, everyone.
Hello.
Thank you.
I guess lastly, me, I'm just James King from Redgate. I'm one of the enterprise account managers. I'm not even sure I am. Enterprise account managers at Redgate Software. So, moving swiftly on. So guys, obviously we're going to talk about some stuff today. I've got a number of slides just to kind of get those conversations flowing. I think people really want to hear about, obviously your real world experience. So I'm just going to get the ball rolling with this. Obviously, Forbes, they talk about innovation. I read the other day that we should be able to deliver custom applications at the speed of ideas. So obviously, we all know it's a way to stay ahead in, in the competitive world. But is IT shifting to an application-centric approach? Go.
Who's going to start?
You
Oh,
go
me?
for it, William.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. Next person.
Done.
No.
Moving on.
IT has always been a quick-moving area of business, or whatever you want to call it, and it's just getting faster and faster. And the expectations from IT inside a business are just getting faster and faster as well. As you just mentioned, this whole idea of the speed of an idea and how important that is to a business to be able to come up with some harebrained idea, try it out immediately. And all of the other buzzwords that jump around, as well as DevOps, there's the cloud and all these things, which are just going to make that even possible effectively. So at least for me, a lot of our clients are running into this exact situation, and I'm going to use even more buzzwords now, leveraging these new approaches to be able to actually probably implement things that they never could before. So like the cloud being the immediate thing that we think of, where you can just spin up new apps or new websites or new infrastructure really almost at the click of a button. And that just changes the strategies that can be followed inside a company completely. It takes a long time. I mean, in Germany, where I am, a lot of companies are very slow on the uptake and seem to be about 5 to 10 years behind the curve when it comes to these sort of things. But even now, Germany is accepting the fact that, wait a minute, why are we doing it the old style? Why are we building data centers? Why are we wasting our money and time trying to do it the old-fashioned way? Let's do it, hopefully, in a newer, quicker way.
And I think our topic today is the biggest issues in a DBA world right now. I think part of the challenge is finding the opportunity in this shift and helping recognize some of the problems that it solves, even for a more traditional style DBA. So for example, in the past, if I've been teaching performance tuning, one of the biggest questions I can get is, so how do I make the work I'm doing visible to my manager and show the value in this. And this has been hard for DBAs for a long time because we've had this kind of systems-based approach to things where stuff is running on the servers and we don't really understand, how does this connect? Where is this coming from? How does this benefit someone if we make it better, if we make it faster? And it's because we haven't had that viewpoint. We've just had this viewpoint of like, I manage these things and stuff happens on it. But having a more application-centric approach of the whole organization where we can find out from people, hey, which part of our customers is this activity coming from, and how can we make it better? How can we positively impact them? If we tune this, is it going to make a positive difference? That's really, really valuable knowledge for even a more classically styled DBA who isn't doing full-on DevOps. So I think finding this shift is connecting the person behind the black box to the application more, which is really valuable to understand in terms of what are you doing and what is the meaning of your work, you know? So I think it's a very positive thing to see that side of it.
I love the statement. The reason why I love the statement is it's getting people, right? So your traditional DBA who loves a bit of table, loves rows and columns, it drives them. That's what they go to work to do. They muck about with data, right? But it ain't about data. Data doesn't make a business profitable. It makes it run. And the thing is that for years, application developers have been embracing things like continuous delivery, right? So delivering value to the end user as quick as being able to react, adapt quicker than the competition to deliver business value. And in fact, if I was writing the article you took this from, James, I would say IT is shifting to a business-centric approach, delivering business value. DBAs need to expand what they do. They need to see that they are not just a little cog in the machine. They're a vital part of the machine. Like the machine is delivering value to clients because clients pay us for what we deliver. And if DBAs, in fact, any data professional can see that it's more about, in this case, application-centric, but in fact, business-centric approach. So it's going full noise.
Can you take it even farther and say that it is shifting to a customer-centric approach? Or I'm actually curious,
Yeah.
like where do we stop? Because our goal is to get things like literally out to the customer and to delight them, or at least help them get their job done.
Kendra, that's so awesome. And be careful, we might almost say the word agile in this session.
How about nimble? Is that better?
Woo! Bring it on.
Let's load it.
But yeah, that's right. I mean, for years, when I was a proper DBA, I looked at data. I looked at what I was doing right down here. And in fact, I didn't think about the customer. And that's the evolution. That's where bringing that together, where IT is getting out of the back room and focusing on what we're delivering. It is customer-centric, 100%.
It is an interesting thing as a DBA because the DBA's job is classically a defender of the data. And in some roles I've been in, even a defender against changes that go wrong. So pointing out things like, okay, when we've deployed changes in this area before, we've messed up replication or something downstream in the system, and sort of understanding more about data flows and the complexity of making changes in the database, how to avoid it. So we can be very resistant to changes going out. Yeah, changes benefit the customer, but we don't want to ruin their customer experience too. And for a long time as a DBA, shifting over to making changes more rapidly was very, very hard because I was just afraid of this. I associated application-centric approach to making a lot of changes and breaking things. And getting past that, so one thing I now know is you can get past that, and you can actually learn how to deploy changes well without breaking as much stuff. But do you guys have tips on how to make this mind shift and how to help smooth the way to doing this without upsetting your customers by breaking stuff?
Well, at least from my side, there's often used trope of the DBA is going to die or is going to disappear, the job's not going to be there anymore. And yeah, in a way, yes, that's a true statement as well, in that basically it's going to have to be more towards, like has been mentioned here already, application or customer-centric focus, where you're no longer a keeper of the kingdom, like you were saying, like a defender of a castle or something. And you've got to be more of an architect for the business. So I at least mentally am stepping away from just being the defender and thinking exactly as you mentioned, how can I assist the business, basically understand the business goals and help move the data platform in that direction? And it's a mindset change. You've got to be very conscious of this, of not just being, well, the DBA's default answer is no. You've got to be no, but, or yes, but it's never a definitive yes or no. It's more of you got to think and really step away from the old school defender of the kingdom. Yeah.
One of the things I used to do with my DBAs, and they hated it for a while, but then they saw the value of it, was working closely with the same application developers whose code used to break our databases. So I would get them working together, and it was the same. The way I just described it to them was around the same goal, and that goal was delivering business value. Wasn't actually delivering software; it was business value. And so the DBA would work with the devs to help them understand the effect of the code, was what it was doing to the poor database. And in fact, one of the things that precipitated out of that was we DBAs learned how to put our database in source control and actually automate some things that we were doing all day and complaining about. Who wants to get up at 3 in the morning to deploy, code that someone else had written badly? No one. Let's work together. Because our clients don't care that I got up at 3 in the morning and I was the guy that was the gatekeeper and said no and reviewed some stored proc for 3 hours when it was about to hit prod. Here's the thing. I like to fail. I fail most days. But I fail in the most important place. In a build environment or a QA environment. I have never failed in prod in the last 2.5 years.
Oh, I was like, in how long? Because if you've never failed in prod, you haven't done anything interesting.
Exactly. I was telling a funny story today. I certainly failed in prod in my time. But in terms of deployment of code, heck no. But deploys to prod of even database code should be the most boring deploy known to man. And DBAs that get that, you go in places. I had a tagline for this session, and I wrote it on a piece of paper so that I'd remember. Automate so that you can innovate. I want to automate all the crappy things in my DBA life, i.e. the horrid 3 a.m. deploys that I used to do where just stuff would go wrong for no reason, because prod did not match anything else known to anyone during our deploy. Hey, worked on my laptop. Right. No way. And that worked for me as a DBA as well, It seemed to work over here.
Guys. Oh, sorry, Hamish. Didn't mean to interrupt you there. Rob Sills asked a question. I think it's a good one. Isn't the most important question why? Why is it shifting? I presume that's what you mean, Rob.
And then
why is it shifting?
Well, it is a good question, because I think we all had a moment where we're thinking. Thinking is a good thing. That's it. So it's an interesting question. So this change it really is. So it's a cultural change when it happens inside of companies, but it's also a cultural thing in terms of how it spreads between companies. And I think part of it is wanting to get better at building tools, because part of the change also involves not just planning something well in advance and maybe you do some customer research, but like figuring out, hey, we're going to do this big thing and here's how it all works, and then executing on it. Because what we've learned with a lot of technology is if you do that, when you get to the end of what you plan to deliver, sometimes it's not actually what your customers want. So part of the cultural change is learning how to deliver this value to the customer and get feedback and incorporate the voice of the customer more into your product. I think part of it is also just to having worked in the environment where you deploy things all at once after planning all this time. It's really hard on your people to do these weekend deployments and then have to recover from all of the issues that your massive code release introduced. It's not an easy lifestyle within the company too. So I think there's productivity reasons, but then also company culture reasons to do it as well. And I'm sure there's even more too. But yeah, I would love to hear you guys' take on this. I think it's a great question.
Well, I'm not sure that too many companies are that bothered about the cultural impact on the employees. Maybe I'm just being devil's advocate here. They don't care. They want to release products to their clients faster and faster. And that just means make everything work well in the background. However you do that. If they have 200 people working 24/7, that doesn't matter as long as the clients are getting their stuff, right? There's not going to necessarily be a focus on, is everybody okay with this workload?
So someone should care about it for financial reasons. I saw an estimate recently that in terms of employee turnover, the cost of hiring a new skilled employee is somewhere around 20% of their salary. And so how you can retain your employees is important. And I think this goes into that, we want to keep our people who know all this stuff about our business as well as their technical skills. But I agree that there are a lot of companies that miss that, which I think is a failing in terms of.
Sure. I'm by no means defending that approach at all. No, but I think mostly it's going to be the thing of the expectation of the market is my iPhone app is there. I get the update, it's there. And I'm not waiting. I don't care about your excuses of we've got to do rollouts, we've got to do QA. I want my app now. And it's pushing more and more into the enterprise IT. That the same thing is expected of internal IT and internal software as well, that they just expect it to always be up to date or not to wait half a year for some monolithic release. They just don't care. No, next week I want my shiny button in the right corner. It's only a button, make it happen.
And you can do that without having disengaged employees. Like one of the cool things about, automating and innovating and using DevOps is you can cut time in lieu. Because I used to have people who were we still delivered to the client, but I lost half my team because they were sleeping during the day because they'd been up all night. We still delivered. Were my team happy? No. Was I happy? No. And that's where taking an application-centric approach is vital to going against that stereotype and a cultural shift. Companies have to do that or else those 200 people are not happy and the company will eventually not deliver. It will, I'm sad to hear that. I want to come over and help those companies.
Thankfully, a lot of companies are understanding this and changing it. But the other thing as well, they have to be able to attract the new talent as well, because the expectation of new people coming into the industry is the same thing. I'm not going to do 24/7 deployments. It's not my job. It's not what I learned IT to do. Computers should do the automation. That's what they're there for, right?
I once did a session on DevOps culture to IT professionals, and people over 40 were like, okay. The people who are around 20 were like, this just sounds like common sense.
It's about using your skill sets where they're best required, right? Not driving yourself with the manual mundane tasks. Putting your effort and your skill into what's going to actually add value to their business objectives and make sure you're all pulling in the same direction.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, should we move on to some more of these slides and see what else we've got to add to this?
Absolutely.
Okay. So, I mean, I guess this kind of follows on, really. I mean, the complexities of the different environments that people are dealing with are growing. We've got Azure DB, we've got cloud, we've got infrastructure as a service, we've got platform as a service, and you're not just looking after one, you're generally looking after multiple things. And obviously, the more complex the applications get, inevitably, the more complex the databases are getting as well. So, I mean, how is this affecting, again, the role of the DBAs in today?
I think it's terrifying to a lot of people. And so right now, so containers versus virtualization, should we learn that now? So it's just emerging. All of these things are coming out, and there's new stuff in the cloud. Should I do a local data warehouse? Should I do an Azure data warehouse? Should I use Amazon RDS? Should I use Azure database? There's just all of this stuff, even within the Microsoft data platform ecosphere, and this feeling of, okay, I've got to help do my normal work, right? We still have this concept of normal work, and learning about this stuff is still separate from it. But we need to start bringing those together and somehow making, okay, I'm going to learn about this and figure out architecturally what are the difference between these. We need to make that part of our normal work now. And that is a real challenge to a lot of DBAs, because that drive, your manager is not necessarily going to tell you, hey, you need to figure out how to schedule this in. It's really up to us to say, okay, I need to have an architectural perspective on these things when I haven't before, and learn how to make these choices, learn how to advise my company. And I need to say, this needs to be part of my job for these reasons, and I need to make it happen. And that's a shift. That's a big shift, I think. I think it's a really good shift.
Yeah, completely agree. The part that sort of screams through in that whole topic is training and education, and the fact that IT is always changing, always will, and there is no way that there is anybody on this planet that knows data platform, just like you say, just from Microsoft to 100%. It's just not possible. So you've got to try and pick your battles, understand which areas are going to be more important for yourself and for your company, but also I think there's got to be a bit more pushback towards managers to say, look, our team needs to be trained as well. I don't know what it's like in the UK or in New Zealand or anywhere else for that matter. There's quite a lot of lethargic employees that I've run into in Germany. A lot of people are trained engineers, so they're engineers in IT. And a lot of people have the opinion of, I've got my diploma, I'm done with the school part. Now I'm doing a work. And it's quite difficult to get their mind to turn around and go, well, no, it's a continuing learning process. I think maybe the issue there is it's not called IT practice like a doctor has a practice, where they continually have to learn. The mindset needs to be there. And quite often it's whether they want to or not. You've got to have the passion for it. Maybe it's just the ultra geek in me, where I just like to sit around and tinker with things to understand it better. But that's going to be the main challenge, at least in my career, I think. Next,
I like
10
that
years.
analogy. I like that analogy of the doctor, because they face similar challenges, right? Like if your doctor just stopped learning when they left medical school, you wouldn't be happy with your doctor.
Yeah, exactly.
Hamish, you looked almost shocked by by the lethargy there. I mean, what do you have to say on this? Because obviously, you're a man who likes to learn all this sort of stuff. And
yeah, it just amazes me, because even as a young fella, way back when, I was always driven. I had this thirst to get more knowledge, right? I guess for me, I don't know whether it's that I'm an inherently lazy person, or perhaps I'm really, really efficient. I mean, for me, I always looked at what I was doing in my job, because I would manage one database. That's cool. I always looked at it, what would it take to manage 50 databases here? And for me, and I said it before, I automate so that I can innovate. I want to automate all the manual, mundane things. I want to automate all the monitoring. I want to know stuff before one clients do, and I want to do stuff quicker than the next person. So I want a pay rise. And so for me, that lethargy, have your lethargy, but I'm going to be better than you, because I want to automate away the monotonous work, because here's the deal. Machine learning, advanced analytics, all those cool kids on the block, I'm going to be looking after more databases, and inherently more complex databases than ever before. So I got to get ahead of the game. And I liked William's thing about being a geek and trying to, do that. I've realized I perhaps am a geek as well, because, I dedicate hours in a week to try and learn new stuff to make my job better. And I want more databases, because hopefully I'll charge people per database and retire, earlier. But
you've just figured out that you're a geek, Hamish.
I am. This has been an enlightening discussion. But we, as data professionals, and I use that term again instead of DBAs, as data professionals, I want to understand as much as the data platform as I can. And when I have, I'm going to automate some of that, and I'm going to put checks and balances, and who knows, maybe clean up the quality of my data, so that the data scientist that comes along goes, I like working with that guy.
Yeah.
And we can, again, deliver value to our clients with more database.
I have heard concerns from people. I get questions from folks that I do on podcasts occasionally, and they can be anonymous. And I've heard this concern a lot about DBA jobs going away, and also the concern of, like, what if I automate myself out of my job? And I actually, when I first worked at a software company, I worked in a build operations team, and our mission was to try to automate ourselves out of our job, to try to automate everything as much as possible. And I did learn through that job that if you're the one doing the automating and figuring out how to do all this stuff, they're never going to get rid of you. You will always have a job if you're the one doing the automating.
Exactly.
So I wouldn't worry about that. They'll figure out, oh, you optimized all that stuff. Well, have I got an interesting thing you may want to learn about? And you'll just get more fun stuff to do and stuff to learn about, and you'll have more options.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was alluding to at the beginning of the whole discussion, where it was moving away from database admin and more to architect's role, where you basically get rid of the stuff. Like Hamish is saying, I don't want to do the boring things. So we have amazing things like DBA tools, a huge PowerShell library of things that just, I don't care about adding a login to a server. No.
Yeah.
Just make that go away so I can do the real work.
Yeah. Enabling self-provisioning and ways that people can set up an environment without you having to go in and, like, here, I'm going to run the script to set up the logins for this environment. Like, there's other stuff you can be learning about. Okay, what opportunities might we have if we use this online service that can help with these problems if they can just self-provision?
Exactly.
Absolutely. You know, that precious database in UAT, I'm going to delete it tomorrow. And UAT people, the testers, they go, why? And I say, I'm going to build it from source. Like that. Because people go, oh, you want to build UAT? Well, heck, that's going to take a couple of days. No. If only there was a company that had some kind of tool that allowed me to build my database like that from source control.
We should look into
that. I know, right?
Yeah. Just keep plugging.
When I worked in that build operations team, it would take, these were fairly large databases we were deploying in these environments. It would take about a week to build out a specific environment. And one time I was working on Friday night in front of the television, and we used a combination of custom scripts to do this. And I misedited one of the XML files, and I dropped one of the databases in the wrong environment. And I couldn't get it back. And the whole team would have been out of work for a week if I were to rebuild the whole environment. And it was out of sync with the other databases. I had to spend the whole weekend in dread, and then go in on Monday morning and tell this team, like, sorry, I dropped your database. Yeah, don't do what I did.
And here's the deal. Here's the deal. I've worked with clients who, it took a week to provision either staging environment or whatever. And at the end of that week, everyone patted themselves on the back going, we spun it up and it only took us a week. And I was just like, I'm sorry, that's not a win. It's not. Like, cool, but we can do it faster. We can,
right.
yeah.
But we didn't actually get anything done of value to the customer during that time. We just got ready to do something of value to the customer.
Exactly. And we talk about multiple databases. Replace databases with environments. You got to spin stuff out. If it takes me longer than an afternoon to spin out 6 environments, I kind of feel I failed. That's how I roll.
Quickly.
No?
You roll quickly.
Yeah.
And automatically, apparently.
Not apparently, my friend.
Yeah.
Just one last thing. So I used to, as I grew as a DBA and looked after databases and this, that, and the other, I learned quickly to, like Ola Hellegren, right, has some fantastic scripts. And I started using some of those to do some of the mundane tasks, right, that were taking up my time. And as I went through this journey of automating and, applying DevOps to it and using some great tools from a certain company, i.e. Redgate, the cool thing was the things that held me back from managing more databases, I eliminated that. And I went on to higher value activities. And I don't want this to get awkward, but around 2014, 2015, I had got to a stage where things were just running and I started tuning TempDB. And I found this person who had some really cool YouTube videos, Kendra Little, right? My whole career has been helped by you, right?
I didn't know where this was going.
Neither did I at the beginning.
I was like, things do get awkward in TempDB. I mean, they really do.
Yeah, but that's the thing. I moved on to higher value activities. I started to learn how to tune queries. I found out what an execution plan was. Because up until that point, yeah, I know. 3rd edition of Grant Fritchie's books out, by the way. Yeah, I had spent so much time grappling with databases. It was a mindset. I had that thirst to try and, support multiple databases. How can I do it? The best thing was I moved on to higher value activities. That helps you grow as a person. Yeah, anyway.
Things interesting.
Automate yourself into a better job, basically. That's the trick, isn't it?
Or you could take the approach of automating your whole job and then just going for a lot of coffee. It's really up to you. Like, oh no, I'm totally working. Look at all the stuff that's happening on my screen.
The little chicken thing.
Right now.
The chicken thing, right?
Yeah.
It's the space bar. I'm thinking.
Should we move on, guys? Should we see what's next on the topic list? Oh, so maintaining data privacy and protection. This is a massive topic in Europe at the moment, obviously with GDPR, and I think even this week, didn't British Airways have some major breach? I mean, this is only going to get worse, right? I mean, this is only going to be more of a bigger issue. I mean, how are DBAs dealing with this? Obviously it's a huge extra part of their job.
Quit your job and become a gardener.
A data gardener.
Yeah.
It is, it's interesting in the United States as well, because we have in the United States right now, a lot of people are starting to hear about GDPR. We heard about it when we got all of the emails about it, that everyone's updating their privacy policy, but also we have at the state level in the United States now, California has passed, but it's not enforceable, a state level act. We have other states who are doing that too, but even cities in the United States are now evaluating and looking at legislation about what do you do when there's a data breach? What are your responsibilities if you have customers who are anybody in the data breach in our state, as well as can they sue you? In some of the states, they can have a class action lawsuit. And then also just different classifications of what is personal data. So now a DBA has to figure out, am I subject to, do we have customers in Europe? So I'm subject to GDPR. Am I subject to industry level regulations like SOX and HIPAA? And, do I have any other groups or regions, cities or states who are regulating this data? And a lot of times it is the DBA who needs to figure this stuff out. So it's an interesting area of complexity that's come in. And and an interesting challenge to do it. But I do think it's overwhelmingly positive, actually, just from the point of view of, yeah, I'm tired of having to go to a website and say, have I been pwned? I think that's okay to say publicly, right? I don't think that's bad slang, but you can go and check. One of the friends of Redgate is Troy Hunt, who set up Have I Been Pwned, and you can put in your email address and see what data breaches have I been in. I'm tired of having been in all those data breaches, so I'm really happy that we're figuring this out now, personally.
Yeah, but
sorry, that was a long rant.
but a useful one,
Justified.
because it's true. The whole thing is, then we have to take back the role of being the data defender, right? We've got the keys to the kingdom and we have to be careful. But basically, I will just, looking at any new system, just assume instantly this system has data which is covered by one of these things. So immediately just take the assumption, we need to lock this down. And I don't know how many clients I've been to where either the sysadmins or the whole IT team or the entire company all have full access to the entire production database with no locks, no auditing, no nothing. And you just say, well, GDPR, oh yeah, we'll be okay. It's like, no, you really won't. Besides the fact that I don't want people to have sysadmin access, it's just then the legal aspect as well. Just, you can't have a discrete veil over this point anymore. It's just not possible. So start locking things down.
Right.
And luckily, a lot of the clients are then, a lot of companies are now seeing the fact and then taking the opportunity when they migrate to a new version of software, whatever, to just lock down everything and only open up with real actual need.
Well, and part of it is also these copies of the database that we're deploying to all these other environments outside of production, because I've been part of it as well of, oh yeah, we're deploying all these environments and the only thing that we're going to mask is maybe the email address because we accidentally emailed all of the customers from QA once, right? So maybe we change the email address a little and take the .com off, but we don't really do anything. But so I think actually it's not only the DBA who bears the whole responsibility of this, because with this application-centric shift, what we really need is, as part of the development process, I've seen that checklists are effective for this. As we're adding new columns to the database, we should be classifying it at that point, but we need a checklist to follow that thinks about ethics and privacy as part of that. So part of, I think, the question for DBAs to raise is, okay, we do need to start thinking about where are we putting all these copies of the data, who has access, how can we mask that? But also for new stuff, how do we make this just work by having everyone along the chain have a part to think about this, which you just have to keep bringing it up and saying, hey, do you guys, is there room for having checklists as part of your process for this? Can we work this in? Because it's not a lot of extra work as you're going along to add it to part of the process. But I think it is something that a DBA can champion, and it can actually really help you in your career to be the person who's like the one who championed the idea to fix a lot of this stuff. I think it's a big opportunity, personally. But yeah, this is the kind of project that I'm like, oh my goodness, I could have made this so much better back when I was in that build operations team. If only I'd figured out how.
But also just getting the buy-in from management to do that. It's the same thing as testing. We can test later, or having test-driven development, where you have to build your test cases first. Yeah, that takes so much time and we have to build all these tests. No, one step at a time. Same with the privacy thing, one step at a time. Lock down the system, think about the process of rolling out. Like you say, Kate, taking a copy of production into test or in development. What do you do with the data? How do you mask it? How do you make sure you have realistic test data without it being real data, and so on and so on? But everybody just sees a huge mountain of things to do and can't even take the first step.
Right.
And
scoping things out so you're not trying to accomplish everything at once, so that you can say, hey, let's prototype this. Let's work this in. Because yeah, when you do look at everything, it's just like,
keep the elephant.
A lot of things are like that. Yeah.
Sorry, Hamish, you were going to say something?
Yeah, for me, I mean, it comes down to if you have the opportunity, it comes down to proper design, right? My philosophy, both in applications, infrastructure, and databases, is from the get-go, deny all, right? So no one can access. And when vendors or people say that either the app or they need sysadmin, I say I need a different app or a different person. You know, I don't want that. Like, and and that's a comical example, but it's so true. Like, as a data professional, should be able to secure my database in such a way that an application or people or whomever only have access to the things they vitally need. And again, the checklist, yeah, I want to see reasoning behind why they want to get it. And provisioning or cloning, refreshing, whatever, databases, as a competent DBA or data professional, I want to obfuscate all data and within reason, of course, because it's six of one, half a dozen of another, because I need to make sure that same as William, I treat all data that it is confidential, because at the end of the day, I, as gatekeeper guardian, it's my job on the line. But one thing that helps us is working together and, again, collaborating and making it understood that security is inherent to all of us. It should be a company-wide thing. It should not just be me, the guy that the person that raises their hand and says, stop, I'm not going to put a copy of prod on your dev machine. I'm going to build it from source control, and I'm going to seed it with proper referential data. And there's people
Well,
yeah.
And you're going to be able to do that because you're not going to write every line of code to do it yourself. I used to be the DBA who was like too shy to ask for tools because, oh, you're paying me, I should be able to write all this stuff from scratch. And then quickly got to a point where I couldn't provide even for like a reindex script, like, oh, we need to handle partition tables in a smart way. And I'm like, oh, I don't have time. The experiences like that taught me that a lot of the value I can bring is showing, okay, we can do some really important stuff and actually get it done by, and I'm not even talking about necessarily buying Redgate products. Yes, we sell products to help with this, but just in general as a thing, I learned sometimes it's actually better for the business to buy products because I am not able to do all of this stuff myself. Even if I did work 80 hours a week, I just can't get there because there's a lot of work to do. And very rarely do we work in a company where we just have a lot of extra time sitting around.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
it's that age old buy or build, right? I mean, again, no plugs involved. There is stuff out there to help people do this sort of thing. It's not like, we were in the 10 years ago where you had to do everything manually. It's there. It's just off the shelf, help you do it.
Right.
And it ties back to the previous slide. I can do I might not even have enough time to do it in one database. What if I now have 10 databases and I'm having to deal with data scientists? And it's just scaling out. And so that's why tools, automation, standards, they're the lifeblood of the evolving DBA.
Yeah. And it's really worth your time to investigate the tooling area as one of your subjects of knowledge, and be that in the cloud or in different areas. But that's part of the learning solution now, is not just learning the platform advantages, but also learning the usability and how to best use different environments as well.
Yeah.
Cool. Should we move on to the last one? And just with this as well, anyone out there who's got any comments or anything to add? I mean, anyone who has anything to say about meeting these challenges themselves, please do pipe up. We'll put it to the panel. But yeah, obviously, guys, I mean, we've covered a lot of topics today. I think I probably know the answer to this from you guys, but what are the sort of keys to meeting these challenges and staying relevant? Automation, maybe.
Yep. So somebody else can go first. Okay. Well, I think that connecting with people in technical communities is key to this, because of the need to learn and stay current, but also just the ability to have contacts in the world that are like, oh, we're facing this problem at our company and we're considering using this new database or this older, we're considering the solution. Have you used that? Do you know someone who's used that? Do you know any good training on this? Do you know any good videos that you've seen online? People to help refer you is really helpful. So participating in, there's a SQL Server community Slack channel. There's a community and Twitter online, going to events and connecting with people and just building up a network of people who you can just bounce ideas off of even is invaluable to staying relevant and helping you prioritize all of those things you can learn and all of those things you can do. That's my take.
Completely agreed. The whole thing that I've spent the last 15 years doing with SQL Server has effectively been building up a network of people I know. I can't know everything of the data platform myself, but I think there's no challenge that I can be sent by a client or a customer or whatever that I can't get answered maybe by a third party. And it's the only way to be able to stay relevant is to do the thing that Hamish says, automate all of the boring stuff that we hate so that we can innovate, learn the things that we really like to do, because you can choose your niche, whatever, it's fine. But then also, like Kendra was saying, reach out through networking at events and at user groups and so on to be able to then speak with people and bounce ideas off people, because pretty much everybody who puts themselves out there is going to be happy to help if they can. I've never actually run into something where I've said, hey, can you help? You're the expert in X. I've got this thing. Am I being stupid? Is this the right thing to do? I've never had an answer of, oh, I've got no time for you. It's always been, oh no, I did that and I did this and I did this and that didn't work and this worked. And it's like a 15-minute email conversation can save you weeks of time.
Yeah. Absolutely agree. For me, often it's collaborating both internally, with the company that you work with. There might be someone there, but actually collaborating, communicating outside the company as well, as you guys said. For me, I'm sure I'm going to butcher this saying, but I found the best way for me to learn for certain topics was to consider speaking about it, like contributing out to the community, because it drove me harder than any manager could in a remuneration review, because I wanted to, one, help someone as much as the people that had helped me, but more importantly, answer the horrid question I thought I might get on the topic. And so for me, I picked certain areas that I wanted to learn more about, and then I offered to speak about them, a couple of months out. And man, I researched a heck about it. In fact, I did tuning temp DB in Brisbane SQL Saturday 2016. I spent a lot of time watching videos and playing and practicing. Here's the thing, I fed it back to the place where I was working at the time, because I'd learned a few tricks that I'd never have thought of doing, and it helped me so much, and I'm a great fan of cross collaboration. So I'll go to Java user groups and talk about stuff. I go to .NET user groups, because here's the deal, I learn stuff off them as well. And that helps me with some of the challenges that I might not get today. But being someone that wants to help other people, same as what you guys said, I've never met someone that said, no, I'm not going to help you. Because they know that if they came to me about a particular topic, I'll either help them, or I'm going to message Kendra, William, or if it's SQL Monitor, James King.
Yeah. I like what you said earlier about going to the getting out of like the sort of DBA box and going to the developers meetings. And that's something I actually did when I was a DBA and we were working on making better changes. Now I couldn't go to every team stand-up meeting. We kind of divided and conquered, but I would start going, not to even every day of stand-up meetings, but at least twice a week, go to a team stand-up meeting. And at first I didn't understand a thing they were talking about. So they were doing Scrum and they had all these crazy terms. And I was just sort of like, hey, I'm Kendra, I'm here again. But it helped me build these connections with them. And it really did help me learn, oh, if I want to ask about this, here's the person I talked to. And people started coming to me and asking me for help. And if I couldn't help them, I could at least help figure out who was. But it really did help that collaboration happen. And it helped me learn a lot about DevOps that I would not have learned otherwise. It was really valuable. So.
I think when I looked at this this slide, I thought, you know, what are two things I can tell a DBA to do? And like in terms of what are some of the top skills that I'd expect from a DBA? Well, I don't expect them to know T-SQL because if I'm talking with them, they did a fair chance of learning English. They did it fairly well, even Kiwi English. So my advice is, you know, like communicate and collaborate, because you can learn T-SQL. You can spend enough time learning the ins and outs of T-SQL to become, you know, a pretty competent DBA. But getting the collaboration side and culture, the whole thing about the part you play in delivering business value, you can meet those challenges, but don't meet them alone. Don't be just siloing yourself. You know, work with people. And again, if you take that step, like I went and sat with a dev team. I used to spend 1 day a week there. It was horrid for them and horrid for me because I didn't understand what they were doing, and the whole Scrum thing, and stand up, it was weird initially. But once I understood, here's the thing, changes that they were doing, I learned early on in the piece when they were at the design phase by interacting with them. It meant that I didn't find them out at 4:30 on a Friday when I was given a change request ticket or whatever saying, hey, press F5 and prod. Mm-hmm. You know, I helped them work out the difference between int and big int.
Yeah.
At the design phase.
Yeah. And ask for things. Like if we are going to deploy something at 4:30 on a Friday, can I have someone who's on call from that side if that's not normal? Because we may need some follow-up. And I have to go pick up somebody. I have to be somewhere else. So I also need to bring in someone else so that if they're, you know, build a continuity plan. Don't take everything on yourself. Take part of this, do it as a team, say, oh, in order to do this, here's what I need to be successful. And change those processes to make that happen, because part of this shift to this customer-centric solution is changing the processes, and it's hard. It's hard work, but we have to figure out how to ask for things so that we can make it work in a way that actually functions.
Yeah. The challenge has always been that operations, so the sysadmins and DBAs and whatnot, have always been in opposition to the development team. They always came in to break everything, and we always tried to stop it breaking. And previous job I had, we made the very conscious decision of sitting the SysOps team and the dev team in the same open office. I mean, it was awful that it was an open office, but just being in the same general area of the building helped a lot. You'd grab coffee with somebody or meet them by accident at the coffee machine and hear what they're talking about. And like Hamish was saying, just sharing a vocabulary over a time or having those weird meetings where they're talking about cryptic stuff helps so much more. Obviously, being in Germany, we have a little bit more of a beer-centric world. We introduced motivational evenings where we'd go out and have some beers together. And luckily, the manager was a proponent of that and was paying for some other beers, which was nice. But it's just to try and get the human side to happen. And we're all IT geeks, and there's a lot of us are awkward and not happy with meeting and mixing with other people. That is a challenge, and you've got to step out of your comfort zone to make that happen. even internally at your own company where they're not really strangers, it can still be weird. But unfortunately, that's the part where it's on you as a person to have to actually make that active move, because no one else is going to do it. You're going to have to do it.
Yeah, and I said before, it was kind of horrid at the beginning, because I needed to understand the why they were doing some of the things they were doing to my precious database. The cool thing was, it broke down so many silos, because I started getting invited along to design meetings because I would have that one little idea that helped them. And for me, and for any DBA listening to this, I mean, I managed to help application developers understand the interactions with data. And for me, I learned more about collaboration and continuous integration and just, things that application developers have been doing for years, like unit tests. I learned about that, and I applied it over my side. And instead of doing this, we did this. That's working together. I don't know if that shows, but
maybe
yeah.
don't put that on your resume, but the details about, hey, I helped introduce test-driven development for our database code, like something like that on your resume, whether you're looking for an internal promotion or an external promotion. This is all career building stuff. The things you can get from these interactions and by making this shift are really, really important skills in terms of growing your job and really enjoying what you're doing over the next 2 decades that we're going into.
Sorry guys, one question we just got through. I mean, a lot of people are in agreement around the sort of participation and collaboration, but we got a question about, in this app-centric DevOps era, does the DBA now need to give up this control? I mean, does there need to be a blended line, I guess, between the DBA and the dev?
Yeah, I was just going to say, basically it circles back to the very beginning. The first slide we had, the whole application or customer-centric thing, right? You have to form internal teams. So you're working with the devs, and like Hamish said, they're not trying to break your system. They're doing their job to deliver value to the client or customer, and you're doing your job. You're effectively on the same team, even if it feels sometimes that you're not. So sharing the space and talking together, and yes, giving some control away. I mean, we still have to make sure the systems are healthy and online and so on and so on. But the whole thing of, no, this is my system and I'll only let you in if you say the magic words. It's more of a, okay, you're wanting to make a change. I understand the change early enough, like Hamish said, been involved in the whole process of this design or this sprint or whatever. Now I know what's coming. So I'm not scared of the change that you're trying to bring to the system. I understand it, and we want to deliver it together.
I think in a way it's almost not even giving up control, it's more shifting that responsibility, or sharing that responsibility.
Sharing the responsibility.
Sharing.
I mean, heaven knows I don't want to manually deploy changes, and I never did, right? The idea of having the control over certain things, like the control over new code flowing into the system, should it be a person controlling that, or should it be something where we have things set up and it's really well tested and we know we have a proven way of deploying something exactly as it's supposed to be deployed in a safe way, and that we don't, I mean, right? I don't want to be the blocker for that. I don't want to be awake for that most of the time.
That's it. It's not the fact that you're blocking, it's the fact you've got to get up at 3 a.m. like Hamish said. Exactly. The process needs to be designed to make it happen, and who or what does it is almost irrelevant.
Right. And I want it to be designed so that if there is a problem with it, it's really easy to flip a bit and have it just be like, oh, we're going to make that not live anymore. No, nobody has to worry about that till you're in the office tomorrow. That's what I want.
Yeah.
Yep.
Hey guys, so we're running out of time. Literally, we're in the last minute here. So I guess any final sort of words of wisdom, or do we feel like we've kind of nailed everything?
Well,
I feel like we've just begun.
Yeah, exactly. We can't nail everything in an hour, but
let's meet each week and we'll solve all of these problems for everyone. No, are you guys busy next week?
Maybe about.
No, Hamish will still be here. No, I think this has been great. I mean, hopefully it's been useful to everyone watching, but I think it's been a really nice way of kind of tackling some of these issues in a bit more of a casual fashion. Just one quick plug before we go, though, because obviously to continue this sort of stuff, we do have our SQL in the City Summit in New York, London, and Chicago. So, you'll be hearing from industry experts such as Kendra and Steve and Grant, I think, is going to be there as well. And we're going to be talking about DevOps challenges, compliant DevOps, all the things we've been covering today in a bit more detail and some workshops. So, check out the website. There's also, I think there's complimentary tickets if you type webinar into the discount code for any of those 3 events.
It's probably half off for London is my guess.
Yes, possibly, but worst comes to worst, just get in contact. Right, time up. Thank you, everyone.
I wouldn't know.
It says complimentary, but if not, just email me james.king@redgate.com and I will I'll sort you out. I promised it now. So all right, guys, thank you so much for your time. Thank you everyone for attending. Sorry, Sam Yanzi, there was one more question come through, but I'll email an answer to you. I'll read that after this, but we've got to go now. So thank you. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.
See you later.